There are two types of prototyping. One is called low fidelity prototyping. This one is simple, accurate, and especially it uses flowcharts and sketches. So I was giving an example where, for example, a, a drawer or an artist wants to draw someone or to paint something that is artistic. He needs to first to do a flowchart or a sketch so that he can give a good photo of the art. So that one we can call low fidelity prototyping. Then there is high fidelity prototyping. This one is more detailed. It is interactive, and it is very, very, very pictorial and closely resembling the final product. So back to prototyping in biomedical knowledge translation. So I wanted to give you that introduction first so that you can understand what we'll be dealing with. So prototyping in biomedical knowledge translation, bridging the gap from theory to practical. So this is a dynamic process that involves converting scientific research findings into practical application in healthcare settings. This process ensures that the best available evidence is used to improve patient outcome, enhance healthcare practices, and inform policy decisions. One of these critical stages is this process of prototyping, and the prototyping serves as a bridge between theoretical research and practical implementation, enabling researchers and healthcare professionals to test, refine, and optimize innovations before full-scale development. All right, so we go to understanding prototyping in biomedical KT. So prototyping is the interactive development of a preliminary version of a product, system, or invention. In biomedical KT, this stage involves creating and testing early versions of clinical tools, healthcare interventions, medical devices, or health information system. The primary goal is to identify and resolve potential issues, gather user feedback, and ensure that the innovation is feasible, effective, and user-friendly. This prototyping process involves, number one, concept development, number two, design and build, number three, testing and evaluation, number four, iteration, number five, pilot testing. So I'm going to go into details about each of the following processes. So number one, concept development. This initial phase involves defining the problem, setting objectives, and generating ideas for potential solutions. For instance, if the objective is to improve medication adherence among patients with chronic diseases, the concept might involve developing a smart pillow box that reminds patients to take their medications. Number two, design and build. In this phase, the initial design of the prototype is created. This could involve sketches, diagrams, and computer-aided designs for physical devices or flowcharts and wireframes for digital health solutions. The smart pillow box, for example, might be designed with compartments for different medication and equipment with sensors and alarms. Number three, testing and evaluation. Once the prototype is built, it undergoes vigorous testing. This includes usability testing with end users, e.g. patients and healthcare providers, functionality testing to ensure it works as intended, and preliminary efficacy testing to assess its potential impact. Feedback is collected to identify strengths and weaknesses. Of course, you can't test something without ensuring that you have, the weaknesses and strengths. Then we have number 4, iteration. Based on the feedback and test results, the prototype is refined and improved. This iterative process may involve several cycles of design, testing, and refinement until the prototype meets the desired criteria. The smart pillow box might be redesigned to include features like voice reminders or connectivity with a mobile app based on user feedback. Number 5, we have pilot testing. A more refined version of the prototype is then tested in a real-world setting through pilot studies. This phase helps to assess the prototype's performance in a real healthcare environment and identify any logistical or operational issues. The smart pillow box might be tested in a clinic or a group of patients home to monitor its effectiveness, improving medication adherence over a few months. So I want us, because some of the people might not relate to the prototyping based in biomedical KT. I wanted to give a real life example of, there was this problem of gas where people were using gas to cook, but the prices of the gas was so due to the taxations, the prices were high. So many people were opting to use electricity, and others were using firewood. So someone saw the gap and filled the gap and came up with a gas that is paid through, like, you use tokens to buy the gas. So solving that problem, that the person the person did the concept development first by coming up with the gas that you can use tokens to buy the gas, so that anybody who maybe 10 bob or 50 bob, you can access the gas. Then he designed the gas, and then the first thing they did was test the gas by sending it to 1 or 2 homestands. And some people saw it as a good idea and they bought the idea. Right now, it is like M-Copper phones. They are circulating everywhere in Kenya because people have adapted and saw that this gas is helping them, because once maybe you had 20 bob, you can use the 20 bob to buy the gas and you can cook. So it solved the problem. So examples of prototyping in biomedical KT. Number 1, we have electronic health records system, mostly known as EHR. The development of EHR systems involves extensive prototyping to ensure they are user-friendly and meet the needs of healthcare providers. Prototyping stages may include creating wireframes, developing beta versions, and conducting usability tests with clinicians to refine the interface and functionalities. Number 2, we have the telemedicine platform. Telemedicine solutions have undergone extensive prototyping to address challenges such as user interface design, data security, and integration with existing healthcare systems. For example, early prototypes may involve basic video conferencing tools tested with patients and providers to gather feedback on usability and identify any barriers to effective communication. Wearable health devices. Prototyping wearable devices like fitness trackers or heart rate monitors involve testing different designs and functionalities to ensure they are comfortable, accurate, and reliable. These prototypes are tested with real users to refine aspects such as sensor accuracy, battery life, and user interface. So obviously, there are benefits and challenges in prototyping. So I will start with the challenges in prototyping. Prototyping in biomedical KT is not without challenges. Some common obstacles include: number one, resource constraints. Developing and refining prototypes can be resource intensive, requiring significant time, funding, and expertise. Number two, regulatory handles. Prototypes, especially those involving medical devices, must comply with stringent regulation standards, which can complicate the development process. Number three, user engagement. Ensuring active participation and feedback from end users, these include patients, healthcare providers, etc., can be challenging but is crucial for successful prototyping. And then we go to the impact of successful prototyping. Effective prototyping can significantly enhance the success of biomedical KT by: number one, reducing risk. Early identification and resolution of potential issues can prevent costly failures and ensure that the final product is safe and effective. Number two, improving user acceptance. Involving end users in the prototyping process help to ensure that the final product meets their needs and preferences, increasing the likelihood of adoption and sustained use. Number three, accelerating implementation. A well-tested prototype can streamline the transition to full-scale implementation, as many potential barriers will have already been addressed. In conclusion, or in a nutshell, prototyping is a pivotal stage in biomedical knowledge translation, transforming innovative concepts into practical solutions that can improve healthcare delivery and patient outcome. Through interactive development, testing, and refinement, prototyping bridges the gap between research and practice, ensuring that new healthcare innovations are effective, user-friendly, and ready for real-world application. By addressing challenges and leveraging and the insights gained from prototyping, stakeholders in the biomedical field can enhance the impacts and effectively or efficiency of knowledge translation efforts. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I would like Mr. Masheria, you give us more insight on the same.
Thank you so much, Blazer, for that nice presentation. At this time, I want to welcome our Doc to give us some additional points and comments on that topic. Yeah. Hello, Doc. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Grace. So this is Blazer is also called Moremi. Is that what you said? Moremi?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Blazer is a so complicated name. I don't know how to pronounce it well. But Moremi is registered after my mother tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. That sounds like somebody from my neighborhood. Moremi, I know, is a farmer. Are you a farmer? Well, now you're doing other things. You're doing prototyping.
I'm a farmer who's doing prototyping.
Yeah, because even they're prototyping in farming. Yes. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this science is never taught to us in Africa because I think some people think it's not necessary to teach Africans how to do these things. But we are doing it all the time, except that it is not formalized. The process of, you remember, we are going through the knowledge translation. That is what Mr. Morimi is calling KT, knowledge translation. So translating knowledge, as we said, goes through the steps initially from exploration. When you come up with, you dive deep into the tacit dimension, and then you get into externalization. That is the harvesting stage, where you sort and grade the knowledge. Then you formalize it into standardized type of knowledge. And then when you standardize the knowledge, it is from standardized knowledge that you pick two fields of knowledge and combine them together. As you have heard from Mr. Moremi, even the example of gas and tokens, gas tokens. So to overcome the cost of gas and to increase distribution for the people, savings. So in that example, we have two already fully developed knowledge areas. One of them is the gas for cooking. The other one is tokens. So, and they're already formalized. I mean, that means, so these are two, so they went through ideation phase. And that ideation is where you begin prototyping. Prototyping, it begins with concept development, stage one, concept development. And you have heard that in concept development, that is when somebody went through those two different ideas that are already existing and combining them to form one new idea that can help people gain access to gas, even during gas shortages. So I just want to see how this thing is flowing. So you see that. So he came from two fields of knowledge that are already fully developed. They just took those to form a new idea. Ideation now is the one that leads you to concept development. And when you go to concept development is when you enter into prototyping. So this thing is continuous. So you know that it is not something that is had boundary because I just finished ideation, let me go to prototyping. So it's just a continuous process. So after you go to the concept development, you design based on the concept that you've developed, you put into design. And design works, you design a prototype, which means sketches, wireframes. And you've had there are two types of designs. One can be low fidelity prototype, which is just line diagram, line drawing. So you can put up a drawing on a piece of paper, or you can be high fidelity where you do a 3D model. Because I was in architecture, I learned that the just basic line drawings, which some people call wireframes, or a 3D model. So what architects do is to construct a small house, a small house, maybe a few inches square, to look like a big tall building. So that's the design phase. And then when you do that, you then go to the next stage, which is testing and evaluating, meaning you're testing. And this what you do is now you present it to some people. And of course, testing, because it's just a model or a line drawing, you test how things are going to fit with one another, you evaluate it. And then after that, when you build now, you can now build a full model based on the result of your testing. And then you ask more people to give you feedback. It's called iteration. Each time you get feedback, you improve. Each time you get feedback, you improve. That is to improve to the user community. Now in biomedicine, that whole thing is mysterious. It is shrouded by mystery. You know what they call it? They call it clinical trials. And clinical trials are extremely expensive. That if you think about doing clinical trials in Africa, you just give up even at the thought. Yeah, because this now comes to the challenges. Challenges which Mr. Moremi has talked about. Resources. So unclinical trials cost about, clinical trials, I think that's Veronica, you can mute. Clinical trials cost about $1 million, no, not $1 million, $1 billion to take from the drug discovery to getting approval, all cost close to $1 billion. Who has got $1 billion? Where's that money going to come from? And so that is the kind of stuff they have created. And this cost comes from the regulatory hurdles, because creating medications is a highly regulated process. But that is pharmaceutical development. But that we should not give up. But eventually, we have to figure out how to assemble the money for funding clinical trials. And that can only happen in decentralized finance. Today, only a few companies are able to do that, mainly located here in Boston and maybe in California. and in Europe, in European countries. But in Africa, nobody is able to do clinical trials because of the regulatory hurdle, the requirement is way too high. So it's the same thing. Clinical trials have got, just like we have had from concept development going all the way to creating the prototype, creating the final product. Clinical trials has got 5 phases. Initially, you have the concept development, ideation you do in your lab, and then you go into phase 1. So it's calling me, clinical trials go to phase 0. Clinical trials where you do the initial tests on your lab at the desk in your own state laboratory at work. Maybe at KU you have a lab, you're testing things, and then after that you do animal studies. Animal studies are known as phase 1. If you have created a substance, their molecule, and you want to test whether it's effective against something, you feed that molecule to the animal, and then you study how the animal is behaving. Those are called animal studies. Today, animal studies have also become very highly regulated because people talk about cruelty to animals. Yeah, so that's its phase 1. Phase 2, then you do toxicity studies. Toxicity studies is finding the minimum amount of dose you can give to cause death to that animal. And I think it's called maximum. So maximum toxicity, you start testing. So that is known maximum lethal dose, MLD. And then you go to phase 3 when you have the minimal lethal dose, which is called effective dose. When you do that, keep doing that, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So the dosage, I think the minimum lethal dose, what's the smallest amount of products you can give to kill that animal? It's called MLD. And then you go to the next level. You say, what is the maximum dose you can give to produce clinical effect? So let's start studying clinical effect. And that's the benefits of clinical benefit. Benefit means that you can only test it to a small group of humans. And that's called phase 3. Phase 3 is when you get about 20 humans, and then you can say the minimum dose. So then you test that, and then after that, you go to phase 4, where you do now population studies of about 2,000 people, not really the whole population, about 2,000 people. And then you're now testing the effectiveness dose. Remember, initially you're talking about the benefit, dose of benefit, where you do the cost benefit analysis, and then you do cost effectiveness analysis in phase 4. Then after that, in the 5th phase, you do population studies. So you can now test the effect of the medication on a general population. So that process is supremely expensive. It takes many, many years for any drug to get approval through the US Food and Drug Administration, US FDA. But then we don't have to worry about all that because there's a lot of other things we are going to be able to prototype in healthcare and medicine, of course, biomedicine, without having to go through what's called ethical products. That is what I just described in clinical trials is a process for ethical products. But eventually, our end goal is to reach there, to be able to finance $1 billion of clinical trials, because it is possible with decentralized finance. And so maybe next year, we're going to be asking ourselves, how can we do clinical trials to finance biomedical discovery and creating new medicines? But meanwhile, there is a full spectrum, like full range of things, ranging from health services. We can create prototypes like electronic medical records, as you had, electronic health records, to personalized care systems, talking about PO boxes. There's so many things, so many opportunities, and this is where it's going to call the ingenuity of yourselves, all the people in Actuate Nation and even beyond, we find out, man, there's so many things that you notice happening in the health system, within health system, including access to the clinics, hospitals, access to medications, accessing to good type of good food, nutrition, diet, fitness, whatever produces health in an individual. These are ideas. There are so many. There's so many. And all we have to do is figure out how to finance them. Use decentralized finance on the blockchain to fund them. Now, this multiplicity of ideas, they are not multi-billion-dollar project investments like clinical trials. Some of them would cost something like the maximum maybe $10,000 investment. That's the 1 million shillings. But 1 million shillings is not 0 shillings. It's not even 1 shilling, that's a million. But it is quite possible to raise 1 million shillings to take a product through prototyping and through the iterative process, particularly through the quadratic funding, which are going to be diving deeper and deeper to understand how do we raise money through quadratic funding to prototype, to finance the prototyping stages. Because I would think that exploration and exteriorization up to formalization, that is kind of funded, because exploration is what you do when you go to school. Exteriorization is what happens when you do your research, you write your thesis, dissertations, term papers. Formalization is what you do when you present those papers to your professors. So ideation is where the process falls apart. And so this way we want to now figure out how do we use decentralized finance to begin financing ideation. Ideation is not very expensive because of developing ideas. Prototyping can be expensive. Just finding the actual user, the user fit for your product. So product market fit. That is what happens. Product market fit is what prototyping is all about. So you create a prototype that is fit to market. Product market fit can be expensive or cheap, but if you're very ingenious, like the way we are working together, with a lot of people, plenty of feedback, the product market fit will not be out of reach of our people. And that's how now you apply your education. So your education becomes applied and your knowledge becomes translated. Then after the product is prototyped and it has a product market fit, then the next big question is, say, how are you going to manufacture this product in large scale so you can distribute it to the community, so they can sell it. And it is never good to try to distribute the market. So like doing population distribution of your products without having gone through this prototyping phase. So that is why Mr. Moremi is saying that prototyping is a pivotal stage, pivot, which helps your product, your idea to pivot. And then when you pivot there, you have now prototype that has got a product market fit. You know that the next thing is just going to flow into the market and the market will absorb it. So I want to leave room for questions, so that maybe there are people with ideas and we can, and I think the next thing is, as we are going through this process, we challenge you to think about new things you can create with already existing knowledge. In fact, you don't have to look too far. These things are already in your fingertips, they're in your hands, to see that how you can combine 2 layers of knowledge to create one new thing. And it's not even sophisticated as it sounds when I'm saying it. It is something you're thinking about every day. But the next thing, you will be out thinking to doing it. Yes, and do not get stuck by the lack of money, because in decentralized finance, it's going to be possible to fund this thing using quadratic funding. Back to you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that. Thank you also to our topic master for today. So at this session, this time, I want to welcome anyone with questions, anyone with comments, anyone with something we can hear about the prototyping and what they know more about the prototyping. So if you have any question, this is your platform. You can raise your hand or type.
Yeah. Yes. Meanwhile, as people are thinking of questions, we can think of prototypes as prototyping is creating a early product idea, early product product simulation that is going to lower the risk. It's going to first of all, it's going to solve a problem. And I would like you to think about now that we are talking about prototyping biomedicine, think about the hospital itself, like a hospital. All of you, at some point, you have gone to a hospital or even a dispensary in the nearby dispensary. What do you see happening there? First of all, when you come in, then you enter into the dispensary. First of all, they ask you to sit down and they start asking you questions. They are trying to collect your medical information. That information is put in a medical record. Now, the biggest challenge we have now in the healthcare industry, in everywhere in the world, including the United States, that medical information that is gathered in your first encounter is not available to anybody else except to the person who was collected. Such that if you go to another clinic, they are going to ask you the same question, the same questions. And you've already answered this question, then you wonder, do these people learn from one another? Even within the same hospital, if you just go to the next room, they are going to still ask you the same question, because the whole system is extremely inefficient. Okay? The whole system is supremely inefficient, and it's such that there's no information sharing. And so that is one thing. That's medical record. How can you have a medical record that is streamlining the data collection? So the clinical encounter data. That what you have, for example, imagine now with the use of the internet, I go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has got my profile, but every time I log into the LinkedIn, it tells me my profile. My profile is blank. I have to enter that information again. See, so there's no permanent record that's even shareable. That's one. And in a patient encounter data, there's the information that you ask from the patient. That's about the medical history itself, and then the physical examination. And then there's administration data, which include the medical record numbers that the hospital is going to use to recognize you, because when you enter into a health system, you need a number to identify you. So that's like your ID. Now you can imagine many clinics do not have an identification number. So they still have to remember you by name. The problem with remembering people by name is that names are not unique. One name can be held by 100,000 people. Yeah. And then they try to combine two names. Even two names, the likelihood of having your two names being shared by 100,000 people is also very high if you're coming from the same location. So names do not help. So everybody needs a unique identification number. It's called identity number. And that's where you begin. And that number is going to be it's going to go into the database and will be the one that people call it patient identification number. Then there is what? The finance information, the payers. So people, when you go to the clinic, the whole problem, the clinical care gets delayed, is they take a whole hour or even 2 hours, even 3 hours trying to figure out how they're going to get paid. Yeah. And that's really complicated. Like this connection between the payers, who are usually the insurance companies, and the approval for payments, all that stuff. And I think there's huge need for innovation. For someone to create a prototype that would streamline that whole payment process. Mhm. So that is a very huge area of, yeah. And then, of course, the other area is connecting the laboratory services with the hospitals. So after you go to the labs, after you go to the hospital, the doctor writes for you a requisition note to go and get laboratory tests. And then you know what? You have to carry those tests with you back to the doctor so he can see. If you don't carry the test, the doctor will not be able to see. And in fact, we'll just see that's a huge mess. It's very messy because the laboratory, a lot of laboratories cannot communicate your results to the doctor, and the doctor now relies on you to transport the results. And same thing with the images. That when you're taking your photos, let's say the X-rays and CT scans, a lot of people providing such services do not communicate to the doctor, so you have to carry a whole wallet, full of photos, X-ray images to X-rays to the clinic, to the hospital, to the doctors, so that they can actually read it. Yeah, so it now becomes a huge, and you can see all that's about medical record. And when you come now, and these huge areas of finding out of innovation and combining multiple different type of technologies and different types of knowledge to create that. And then if you are now in in furniture, hospital furniture itself, so many things like hospital beds, hospital seats for patients, a lot of stuff to create there. And that is just furniture itself. It can be indoor furniture, which could be even metallic, but there's a lot of work to be done so that our hospitals can stop importing things from outside. Yeah. Then other things like hospital tubings, plastics, a lot of things. So when you go to now, you visit a hospital, you can look at all those things, even things are going wrong, and then ideas will come into your head. And some of these ideas you've actually studied them in school. Then you can see how you can combine this idea with another idea from somewhere to create a new thing. And what is the most disturbing is that the medical water we use in Africa is imported from Europe. Medical water, which comes from the rain. And I'm sure there's some of you who are in chemical engineering. You would know how to create medical water in a snap, but we don't do it. So medical waters are of a huge variety. Some of them are used intravenously for treatment of patient certain type of disorder. Some for hydration alone, and some have got added salts, some have got added sugars, and some are distilled water, and some are carbonated water. You see, all that is what you call chemical engineering, but it's not really that advanced. It's something that you can do very well. And the question is, how are you going to make sure that water is sterile? Remember, not all the water that's going to have clinical uses has to be sterile, including there's some water for drinking. So, for example, the water that you get from the drinking water is not sterile; it's just clean. Yeah. So sterilization, you see, like the water you drink from the tap, you don't have to sterilize it, but you can boil it to make it clean. But so there's a very huge opportunity in prototyping things in medicine and medical care, all the way from all these medical records to hospital furniture to some stuff like water, even nutrition. For those people who are doing nutrition science, you can create prototypes for food that lowers blood pressure, food that lowers blood sugar, based on the African diets, and then you recommend it to people with chronic diseases. And then there's exercise regimes, fitness, workout, even for physical therapy. It's a lot of things. So this is what you're saying that you want to discuss maybe by the end of this year. we shall have had many different ideas, and this is what we talk about the summit at the end of the year. We're inviting people like yourselves to present posters for the ideas that you want to prototype. And when you present a poster there, and remember, because you want to go and make observations in the health system, whether you are in a clinic or even at home, find anything that can improve health or quality of life of someone. I'm talking improving health or improving quality of life. That means something that can include that person's ability to exist better existence, improved activities of daily living, and
Hey, Doc.
improved. Yes.
I can see Murimi Blazer is has a question for you.
Yes. Yes. So let me just take this poster. I think there's about the poster that we want to invite people to create posters in a poster competition at the end of the year, this time. Yes, go ahead, the question.
So my question, I have some few questions. Number one, I know most of the people are not asking, but you as a person, if I'm presenting an idea to you, what do you want to see in a prototype? Number two, should my prototype be detailed? And then number three, how do you copyright your prototype? If, for example, you're having that poster presentation. Then number four, of course, you have talked about population distribution and getting funds for your prototype. So, and you have said that you should draft a prototype that reaches your financial reach. So my question was, what about a scenario you have a prototype that reaches your financial reach at the start, but due to some few things that need to be adjusted, it grows to become bigger and you need more funding than you are capable of handling? Thank you.
I'm glad for those questions. There are about 5 questions already, isn't it? Yeah. And first of all, let's talk about intellectual property protection, because that is what people are very concerned about. One thing I want to assure you, nobody can steal your knowledge. What you know is actually very personal. And the other people can say, they can pretend they're stealing your idea, but they can never make it as good as you have it. Let me give you an example. If you have surgeons, for example, people who do surgery, there's so many surgeons trained every day, but there are surgeons who always become the best surgeons, the best surgeon in the country. You know who is the best cardiovascular surgeon? That surgeon does not bother about people stealing his technique, his surgical technique. It is that because creating something is not even a science that can be stolen. It's an art. It's a skill. So if you're very skillful at how you're creating a prototype, forget about people trying to steal it. They can never steal it, because nobody can actually take the skill out of your head. Okay. And so even people, even getting copywriting, intellectual property protection, it is a good idea, but it really protects not much, because if you're constantly innovating, then you don't have to worry about people stealing. But it's the intellectual property protection for people who want to, still concerned about that. There are 3 ways of protecting your intellectual property, as we have discussed earlier. One is copywriting. If all the posters that will be shown on copyright notice, and that means that if somebody does copies your ideas, you can go and sue them. But remember, ideas are up to nothing if they're not being created into a product. Again, creating a product is where the miracle is. It's the magic. It's like converting water into wine. So, second, way of intellectual property protection is through what people call you know is what people call a secret recipe. Yeah, secret. So you can tell people that this thing has got a secret recipe, like Coca-Cola does. Tell the people that the recipe for making Coca-Cola is secret. Nobody knows. If and that's really, I think, I don't know whether there's anything in Coca-Cola that is secret. But when you say that, it's just an idea that people buy into it. Yeah. But then there's a way of intellectual property protection, that you have copyright protection, that you get copyright, which you have given by the Kenyan government. And so what you can do is that even for posters is to file copyright protection, intellectual property protection with, or patents with the Kenyan government. Yes. But that will not even bring any money to anybody, because there are so many people who hold so many patents, but there's nothing you can do with them except having patents, just like a degree certificate. If you don't use your degree, it's not going to bring you money. So the other thing is, you said that you can have a prototyping a budget and then you run out of money. During these iterative procedures, and how they do this in the United States, they have series of funding. Okay, because there's the funding. So this whole process, from the concept development all the way to market distribution, there are about 5 rounds of funding. Okay, and 5 rounds of funding becomes the initial money that you get out of your pocket, and then you have Series A funding, then Series B funding, Series C funding, Series D. By Series D, people and I would like you guys to go online and look at those series of funding, that's how they are done. I know here in Boston, they take guys through series of funding that it's because you can't know how much it's going to cost ahead of time. You cannot know ahead of time, like calculate this thing is going to cost $1 billion. It's only after the fact that you find we spent $1 billion. So funding is raised with it iteratively. As you say that you put the idea in the market, it gets tested, then you come back, then you have to finance the next iteration. And where do you go and get the funding? It's the same customers, you ask them. So there are 3 different ways people raise this money. One is that you can go to investors. So you show at investors. That's why you cannot fail to show your ideas. That's at a conference, because at a conference where you find investors. And when you show them, you can get the first round of financing. Somebody can say, I'll put $100,000 on this project. And when they investors put money on your project, they are saying, they're going to ask you, how much equity are you going to give me your project? They say, you tell them, I can give you 20%. And then say $100,000 for 20%. That is a fifth of your idea is gone. So you have a form of fifths to sell. That means that you can get maybe 500,000 that way dollars. So the rest of the money, the rest of the value that is left, or equity, see the rest of the equity that's left in your idea, it can now be sold for Series B, Series C, and Series D. And so what I found here in Massachusetts is that they have a technology transfer office. It's called a TTO, which we don't have TTO in any university in Africa. So the technology transfer office work up the initial valuation, not evaluation, valuation, value. Determine the initial value of your project to market. But then say, if this idea prototype you're talking about reaches the full market, what's going to be the value of that whole product? And so you suppose they say the value of your idea is going to be $1 million if you're selling it to every Kenyan. in the very first round distribution. Then you can say that's the initial value, and that's known as the valuation. I think one of these days we need to create a class on valuation so you can understand how to value your idea. And then once you have that value, then you can tell people that I want to give 20% to raise money from investors. So if it was 1 million, then 20% would be $200,000. See, you can raise $200,000 if the initial value is 20 million. So the rest of the $800,000 you are going to be issuing out, and that 1 million gets converted into shares of stock. Okay, the shares of stock are, say, 1 million shares. So this, you would say now that's $1 per share. And so you are now remaining with 800,000. You get some rich people in Nairobi, they can buy those 200,000 shares in one afternoon. But you need to know some rich people like that. Well, if you don't know people like that, then you can go to the second way of doing this. Instead of looking for the very wealthy people because they are very hard to fight and difficult to convince because they are few and far between, you can now tell people that if you buy the 200,000, 200,000 equity, and then you can distribute it to the people, you will say that they will have the first right to own the company when it gets registered and floats in the marketplace. And now because you're on the blockchain is what you're talking about quadratic funding, that you will be able to do this, which was only in the domain of some very wealthy people. Now you can have local people buying, say, if you say, for example, it's $1 million you need, and you get 1 million actuates, then you can sell 100,000 actuates or 200,000 actuates in the beginning to finance that particular project, to create your prototype. And then after that, you go to the Series A, Series B. When you sell another 100,000, maybe this time at $2, and then you keep on doing that until you have exhausted all the actual tokens. See, that's how you do it. I think you asked me other questions. I can't remember. What else did you say? But does that answer your question about the funding? You ran out of money. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Doc. I hope, Maureen, you've been answered the questions that you had. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming in for today's meeting. We really appreciate your time and your audience. So next week on Tuesday from 7 to 8, we shall be having our session. We're going to be focusing on the 7th stage of biomedical knowledge translation. So if you feel like you can come in as a topic master, kindly you can write me a message on my WhatsApp, and I'll give you the platform to talk. Thank you so much. Let's all continue filling the form.
Yes, and what I would say that I think the next iteration we shall be talking about valuation and funding, not this next meeting, but the next cycle, so that people can understand how this works and how the quadratic funding will work for prototyping and for the translation in biomedicine. Because when the funding cycles are the ones that defeat us, we get lost in that whole thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think we are going to, because we have to jump to the next meeting, we African women in DeFi in a few minutes. You have a good one, and see you for women. We'll see you in the next meeting.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes. Let's continue filling the form. Thank you so much, everyone. At this time, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Have a good time. Have a good week. Thank you.
Okay.